Okay, so I'm going to do a real simple quick video here of a rolling door, right? I'm not going to get into creating a place for, I'm just going to show you how this is worked out within Farming Simulator 22 and how all the parts work with the shader and everything else, right? So we have a door, we have the mechanism and everything else here, right? And we basically want to move this door, to get the axes right, we want to move this door up like so, but what we don't want is to be able to see this once it goes up, right? We want to simulate the fact that it's being rolled up inside of here. Now, to actually create, an actual rolling door where it actually goes up and rolls around in there is, well, that would be an absolute pain, to be honest with you. It could be done, but in my opinion, it would be a pain and completely unnecessary because you're never going to see it inside of here. So there's just absolutely no reason to do that. And also the simulation itself, it's just going to be unnecessary, right? So instead of doing that, Farming Simulator or Giants have created a method of actually making the visibility of the door disappear, as it goes up above a certain point. So if you have a building, if you imagine there's a building around this, whatever that might be, and the door's going up. Now, if the building was, had enough thickness to it and was high enough, it wouldn't matter because the door would go up and be covered by the building, so no big deal. But if the building isn't big enough and thick enough to hide the door within it, obviously it's going to be poking out the top of the door and become visible. So that's not really what we want. We want to give it the effect that it's actually rolling up inside of this section here, but more importantly, it's disappearing, so it's not going to be visible outside of the building, right? So to do that, Giants use a shader to basically get rid of the visibility of it. But so what I'm going to do is I want to just show you, what I think is potentially happening here, in a way that makes somewhat sort of sense. So I'm going to create a plane, just a simple plane, right? And then what we'll do is I'm going to rotate this. So let's just do RX90 GZ1, and we'll just, GZ1, and then we'll just set the origin down the bottom here. That's fine, doesn't really matter. And then we can just apply the rotation. So we can see it a bit easier here, right? So with the way this works, if I was to, let's go into here. So we've just basically got a really straightforward basic unwrap, right? I'm going to give it a material. And then what I'm going to do is basically just go into here. We'll go to shader editor. I'm going to create a new texture, image texture. And we'll go into material preview just so we can see this. If I connect this up to here, I'm just going to click new. Doesn't matter what this is, but I want to use UV grid so we can actually see it on here. I could actually change that, to be honest with you. So it's a little bit more, perhaps maybe, let's see, if I go to here, let's see, let's do color grid. Yeah, let's do color grid. That might be a bit easier to actually see then, right? But what we want to do though is we want to change this so it's not a repeated texture, it's just a clip, right? Now currently it's just going to do whatever we want it to do. That's fine. But what I want to do here though is I want to use a modifier to make this work. So I'm just going to select this face, Shift S to face, Shift A, and I'm going to create a plain empty. And I'm going to come over to the modifiers and I'm going to do UV project, right? And I'm going to use my UV and I'm going to take the empty. And you can see it all breaks, and that's because I need to rotate the empty on the x-axis by 90 so that it actually projects correctly, right? But now if I take this and go GZ, it disappears, you see? And if I actually plug in the alpha here and then go GZ, I actually need to go to material, come down here and change this to alpha blend, right? Now if I do GZ, it does this. So it's no longer visible. And to me, that is what basically is happening with the shader. It's projecting the UV in only one place. So basically, when you move your object up, the UV is still here. The UV island is being projected right here. And obviously the texture can't project anymore, can't be displayed on the object because the UV hasn't followed, the UV map hasn't followed the object, right? So yeah, that's the way my brain is sort of saying, okay, that's potentially the way that this shader is controlling how that works, right? I just wanted to kind of show that so you have an idea of potentially how everything is working. So we'll get rid of all of that. Let's come back to this. So what we need to do here is basically, you know, set all this up. Now, I'm not going to be doing textures or anything to that extent. It's going to take too long and I don't want to spend that kind of time on it. So what I'm going to do is just create a material here, right? And we'll just call this, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. We'll just call it frame, right? Who cares? And then what I'll do is I'll take this one here and I'm just going to create a new material and we'll call this door, right? Like that. So this one here, what I will do then, let's take this, we'll just call this frame, and that one would then be the rolling door, right? Easy. We'll just update the data there, that's fine. And what I will do though is I'm just going to take these and apply the rotation. So we have a UV map on all of this, but I'm actually going to remove all of those. So let's just remove the UV maps. We'll just start again. So we'll take this one here. We'll add a UV map. Again, I'm not doing textures, so I don't really care what they look like. This one doesn't, I'm not going to use any kind of shaders on this one because it's not relevant, doesn't matter. But this one here, what I need to do is create 3 UV maps, right? So my first one would be for my texture. So to cheat this, what I'm just going to do is like this, right? And I'm just going to do UV, so U and then project from bounds. So we'll just have that, right? And then what I'm going to do is just basically create 3 new. So we've got 3. I always rename these. So this is UV map 1. UV map 0. This is 1, and then this one would be 2, right? So the UV map 0 would be where our texture is displayed. UV map 1 would be for our dirt and moss, and UV map 2 is what controls the actual visibility cut or vis cut, whatever it's called in the shader, the building shader, right? So that's basically how all of that is controlled. So you need 3 UV maps for this. The first one, as I say, is to control the actual texture that you want to apply to it. UV map 1 is for your dirt and moss, and UV map 2 is for the vis cut. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So what we'll do here is I'm just going to do Shift S to origin, Shift A, and we'll just create an empty so we can put everything inside of that, right? So we'll just do that, and then we'll just do Control P and parent to object. Doesn't really matter what that's called, don't care. So we should have, you know, what we need here to work with, right? So what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to export all this out. So we'll just export this into a folder, and we'll go into the Giants editor, and then I'm going to show you basically how this works. So if I go to here, we're just going to go to Giant Size 3D Exporter. We'll create a folder on the desktop here, and we'll just call this rolling door. That's fine, doesn't matter. And again, we can call this rolling door and set, and we'll export everything, right? So now if I go to here, go to my rolling door, open this up, and we have our rolling door, right? Excellent. Now we have to make sure, and that is one thing that really annoys me about Giants Editor. It tries to merge the actual materials together. So what we need to do to overcome that, there's a couple different ways, but the way I usually do this is I'll just take my door, okay, and I'll go to my material and I'm just going to make it green. And that will then separate it from everything else. So now this is door, the door's green, everything else is white, right? So I can export again, and then when I open it up, we should now have two separate materials. It's just the way that Giants Editor works. It likes to merge the materials together. So if you have duplicate materials, it gets rid of them. So we've got now material of door and frame, right? Perfect. So, like I said, I'm not worried about the actual colors or anything else. But just so we can actually see this maybe a little bit clearer, what I might do here is to add in a texture. So we'll just go into go to my D drive. We'll go to FS22, data, shared, and we can just maybe use something like this, right? Just so you can see what's going on. We'll add a light in. So now if I go into here, right, I want to move this door up. So I'm going to say I want to move it up, right? So I'm just going to do on the y-axis. So we'll just grab this on the y-axis if we can. And we're just basically going to go up to here, right? Like so. What we need to do though is before I do that, we need to give it the shader. We're going to come down to here and go into here, building shader, right? And we're going to change it to visibility cut, okay? So now if I actually move my door up, so I want to say we're going to go to somewhere like here. Then we've got this visibility cut threshold. So then we just drag it and you can see straight away it's going the wrong direction. That's no good to me whatsoever. And this is something you have to be aware of, right? And I've done this on purpose so we can actually see what's going on, right? Because it starts at 0 and goes up to 1, okay? So we can get rid of that. We'll close this down and we'll delete it again. And what we're going to do is if I go 3 on the numpad, we'll go into here. I'm going to go to my UV map 2. And I'm going to just basically take all of this and I'm just going to do R 180, rotate it, the whole lot. So just select everything and rotate it by 180. Okay. Export all. We go back into here, reopen it again. We can go back to here. We'll go to my door. We'll add in the texture. We'll do data shared, add in our texture. We'll add in a light so we can see what's going on. Okay. So now we're going to go down, add in the building shader. And we're going to do visibility cut, right? So now I'm going to say, right, I'm going to move my door up to here, right? And then what I want to do is my visibility cut. As you can see now, it goes away. And you only need to go as far as you need to go. So I could go to 0.93, whatever. You don't have to go all the way. It's just until the door disappears or whatever it is object you've got. So 0.93, 0.94, whatever. You could go all the way to 1 if you wanted to, but not necessary. Just until the door disappears, right? And then what you need to do is set up all of this in your animated objects. And this is exactly the same as if I go into the cow barn big. So if I go to my FS22 data and I'll go into placeables, Rudel Hoffman, go into cow barn big, right? Go into the XML. If we go to the rolling door, you can see rolling door, it's all moving. We've got collisions and everything, but now we've got rolling door 1, parameter name, visibility cut threshold. And that is basically referring to this parameter of the shader, right? And you can see here that it goes to 0.94. And that's all you need to do. Just basically add in this animation attribute with your correct node ID for your i3D mapping. So if we go to the bottom, you can see we've got our i3D mapping is here, right? And then your transition for all of the parts. So basically how far it's going to move, and then your collisions if you have them on the door. Now the other thing, like you can see here, we have a rolling door, collision bottom part and top part, because again what we don't want in this is for the door to go up with a full collision, because then you're going to have this collision sticking out the top of the building. So you're not just basically trying to hide the door, you're trying to hide the collisions as well. So what you would do there is create 2 collisions in here in Blender. So what I would potentially do here is to take these. I could take this door, for example, and I would just duplicate it. So I'll just do Shift D. I don't need all of these UV maps on that though. So what I would do here is just get rid of those extra ones. Don't need those, right? And then I could just basically do Control R and cut that like so. Let's go into local mode on that, just that piece, so it's not causing any glitching or anything. And then we could separate this out. So basically here what I would do is just take this piece here, like so, P, separate by selection, and then I would just fill that in because you can't have collisions that are non-manifold. So we're just putting face in that one and a face in that one, and now we have the two collisions, right? Like so. So what I could do here though is potentially, let's see, what I could do is if I go into edit mode, wireframe, edge select, shift S cursor, like so, and then origin to 3D cursor, then take this one down the bottom here into edit mode, select that one, shift S to edge just to make sure, and then origin to 3D cursor, like so. And now we've got origins in the middle of both of those, right? And then we could just rename these. So we'll just do rolling door, whatever, hole upper, for example. And then this one here, F2, and we could then do hole lower, right? And we'll just update the names. I like to have the names all match and everything. Delete the materials off of both of those. We don't need a material there. So we just do this one and we can just call this hole, right? Whatever, doesn't matter. And then we'll just copy the name over to that one or copy the material. Yeah. Now we've got one of those parts like so. So we come out of local mode. What you might need to do is just scale these up a little bit so they're actually a little bit bigger. So if we do one on there, for example, if I was to take both of these into edit mode, wireframe, and then what I might do here is just scale them on the x-axis just a little bit, just so they're a little bit bigger than the door itself, right? Because collisions can be a bit weird if they're too small, they don't work very well. So, you know, just make them a little bit bigger, something like that, and then Control A and scale. So everything is everything, and just check that in your items here, just to make sure that nothing has got any weird rotations or anything like that, right? And then you just export it again. So here, perhaps maybe what I would do then is we'll take the frame, and what I'll do is I'll make that red, yeah, just so it doesn't cause any issues with the other parts. And then we can export that again. So we'll just come into here, go to the Giants editor, export all, go back into here, open this up, and then we can do the same again. So now what we would do though is our rolling door, we can add our texture like so. We do our collisions. So then basically here what I would do is rigid body and change this to kinematic because it's a moving object, and then shape non-renderable, right? Same with this one, rigid body, kinematic, and then non-renderable, okay? And that's pretty much that. So then we would just go back to our door like so and add in our shader. We'll come down to custom shader, add in our shader. So we'll do building shader, visibility cut, right? And then we would move the door however we need to move it. So we would just basically go up till we can't see it anymore, right? Add in a light so we can see what's going on. And then basically take our visibility cut and go to as much as we need to. So here maybe 0.96 would work, right? Can't see it anymore. And then you would just put all of those values into your XML. So we've moved it from 0 to 4.59. So for my door, it would be 0, and then on transition 1 on the y-axis it would be sorry, on the x-axis it would be 0, y-axis it would be 4.59, and then 0 on the z-axis, right? On our collisions they would be a little bit different. Obviously we'd have 0. Well, potentially we wouldn't have 0 on that, would we? Because they don't start at 0. So our collision lower is actually going to start on the Y at 2.289, okay? And then go up to whatever we would go up to, so somewhere up here, right? Yeah, you'd have to kind of play around with the collisions a little bit there to see where they're going to work. And then the upper is going to start at the same place, right? They're both going to go pretty much to the same position, I think, in that sense. So the lower would go up to maybe somewhere like that. If I was to then take that value, this one, you go up too high, you see it's going to go up to there. So this one would actually only go to around about there, right? 4.878 or whatever. So then that's the values that you would put in here. So it wouldn't start at 0 at that. For that, it would actually start at the different values. But that's fine. It doesn't really matter. You could always in Blender have the origin point of these at 0 if you wanted to. A lot of different you might have to go backwards and forwards a bit, you know. So here, perhaps instead of that, I would then go to origin and set the origin point of these at the 3D cursor down here, right? So if I do that again, just to, I know I'm going over it more than I need to, but here sometimes, you know, you just need to get an understanding of everything, how it all works. So going over it multiple times can be helpful. If I open this again, I'll do our rolling door, set our texture so we can see it a bit clearer. And then can do building shader, visibility cut. It's fine, doesn't matter about that. And then this one here, again, like I say, rigid body, and then kinematic, non-renderable. This one, rigid body, kinematic, and non-renderable. And then our door, we don't need to do anything with that. We don't need to have any kind of rigid body on that at all, okay? Because the collisions are taking care of that. So then what we would do, like I say, is we would go in and you could do it like that. So perhaps maybe here then what I would do is take my door and then go up to wherever I wanted to go to. So if I go to, say, this value here, right, we could do that. And then I could just literally take that value from there, go to my collision, and this one is going to be too high, you see. So what you would have to do is half that value, right? So if I was to just do 2, it's going to go to here. And then this one would actually go to the full amount. So they're both now going to the same position. Hopefully that makes sense. And then your door, your visibility cut, you would just basically go to whatever you needed to go to there. That one would do. And then all of those values would just be entered into your animation, into your animated object. Same as what it's done in the cow barn big. I would highly recommend to refer to this for all of the different parts you need to set up, because it's got that parameter attribute and everything else there already for you. So you just basically copy all of this into whatever you've got to set up for your animated door. Hopefully that makes sense as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it, but you need to make sure, obviously, for your door itself, you've got your UV maps all set up correctly. So under normal circumstances, your UV map 0 would be, it wouldn't, generally speaking, be done the way I've done it here, but I just wanted to do it real fast. It would be done differently to map to your appropriate textures. And then your UV map 1, again, would be unwrapped specifically to match in for your dirt and moss and ambient occlusion map. And then UV map 2, like I showed, all you need to do is go into edit mode and then just literally do U, project from view bounds. but remembering that you need to rotate it by 180 degrees to make it work. And I think that has something to do with the reason behind the Z and the Y axis being flipped, because in Blender, Z is up and down and Y is, well, left and right, whatever you want to call it. Whereas in the Giants engine, Y is up and Z is left and right. Okay, so there may be, that could be a reason why it has to be rotated. I don't know the reason, exact reason, but it is a reason nonetheless, right? It has to be rotated to make that viz cut threshold work correctly. So just bear that in mind when you're doing this. But you know, it's a really simple. You could just export the door out as a separate object, put it into the Giants editor, try the visibility cut threshold thing, and if it's going the wrong way around, you know that you've got your UVs 180 degrees out. Okay, and you need to rotate them or whatever that may be. You know, if the visibility cut is actually going, instead of you know, up and down, if it's going from left to right or right to left, then you need to know you need to rotate it by 90 degrees either on the negative or the positive to make that work in the right direction. But generally speaking, when I've done this, if I do it front on like this and then do the project from bounds, in all of my experience doing this, it needs to be rotated by 180 degrees to get it to work. Okay, so there's no fancy keyframing or anything like that. It's really straightforward, simple. You just do it as I've shown here, and then you can use the visibility cut threshold parameter here to make that work for you. And then, like I say, all you need to do then is go into your XML and set all the values up as you would any other animated object. Okay, hopefully that helps you out. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.